Hello. Welcome to the Exatos.
Anybody? Anybody? All right, there we go. God, my hair's so long. So, did you ever watch that movie with Martin Short about like him being unlucky?
Maybe.
There's
Tell
a
me.
movie
Does the movie
where,
have
like,
a name?
girl's super unlucky, and she like falls off the train, misses her taxi, gets lost in South American rainforest. Super unlucky, and her dad's super rich, so he wants to save his unlucky daughter. He has a big company, and the guys come into this office room, and he's got like 100 chairs. And he goes to one of the chairs, and this guy breaks the leg off the back of the chair. He's like, "Watch this," and he calls a man from the office into the room. The guy goes by all like 46 of the first chairs, finds the 47th chair between the 60, sits in just the one chair. Like, he's so unlucky. He sits in just.
It sounds like this is pure luck with Danny Glover.
Yeah, exactly. That's the movie.
No. Although if
I
we're
can't be sure. You sound like you just Googled it and have never seen it before.
I did. I just Googled it and I haven't
That's
seen
what
it.
it felt like I was driving my teenage daughter to school and I brought up something, and rather than listening, I was just Googling it.
Well, let me ask you, have you ever seen the movie with William Macy? And he's unlucky, and his job is to basically sit next to people in casinos and kill off
the
their
cooler.
luck. The cooler, yeah.
Cooler.
It's a good movie.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
I like the unlucky guy sits in just the most unlucky chair, and then
It's 47.
He's gonna be so unlucky, and she's gonna be so unlucky. They're gonna be unlucky at the same time because luck, good luck, bad luck, it's all the same. So his bad luck leads them to her bad luck.
Really, the 47th chair?
I think so. It's been a while since I've seen it. The other thing is, it's a ripoff based off another movie called Le Chèvre, the goat, which is like a French movie with what's that guy's name again? He's in every French movie. Depardieu. It's a Depardieu movie where he plays. Depardieu plays Danny Glover.
I was going to say Jerry Lewis.
Where do we go? Face him. Face his face. There you go. Look, that's supposed to be Danny Glover's character. It's on Depardieu.
Oh, Christopher Columbus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know. Good French movie.
Have you ever seen 13 Chairs with Sharon Tate, her last film?
Yeah, of course.
That's a really weird movie because the whole movie is Sharon Tate going around with a kitchen knife, slicing into chairs to see if there's money inside. So there's like these chairs and they disappear, and she's like, "Where are those 13 chairs?"
How long
really
could that possibly take that it deserves an entire movie? I could cut 13 chairs in like 5 minutes.
Because they get lost. They're distributed elsewhere. So she has to go like track them down.
This almost sounds like an inverted Osiris story where like instead of
company.
There's like a point where like Orson Welles has like a cameo and he like says, "I'm Jack the Ripper," and he's got like a shaving blade and he's like running after people. It's so weird. And then like that, but this is the thing, I've talked to you about it before, that her first movie had 2 alternative titles. One was Eye of the Devil, and the alternative title was 13. This is called 13 because in the movie it's about the Golden Bough, where you have it's the part of the Golden Bough that the Catholic Church freaked out about and made them like re-edit publications for years and years and years, where they were talking about the pagan roots of Christianity. So 13 is about like the ritualistic killing of like the head guy. So in this case, not necessarily a king, but he's part of an estate where they sacrifice him in a ritualistic way, and then they pass on the throne. But so her first movie is titled 13. Her last movie was called 13 Chairs, which had the alternative title of 12 plus 1. So putting the posters side by side of Sharon Tate's first and last movie, 13 and 12 plus 1, is kind of weird. Just saying.
And just to be fair, every chapter in the Golden Bough is about taking out the top guy.
That's true. Although it went further, so you can read now the parts of the Golden Bough that had been censored after just the first publication. So like when they first released it, it was one way, and they took out a whole
or unabridged or both.
The unabridged. Like when they released it following it unabridged, the Catholic Church made sure that, I think it was 2 chapters maybe, but it was like, and then various sections that went into talking about the pagan roots of Christianity. So they didn't want that anthropological scope, which is weird because like there's a lot of like Christian anthropologists. Like you can watch like debates about the Golden Bough from Christians where they're discussing it, and like C.S. Lewis was an anthropologist along with J.R. Tolkien, but he could still entertain and still be a Christian. Like he could like say how like, okay, so this guy went and fulfilled these ancient rights. Like he willingly put himself in that position where he did these things that were described in the ancient world.
Like Albert Schweitzer.
Yeah.
Wrote. Not he himself did, but how his.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
When you say the Catholic Church, though, yeah, I'm curious in this line of thinking, where like the Catholic Church means something completely different every 50 years, give or take, depending on who's run it, interpretations.
Yeah, because of the Pope.
Isn't
it
like a racket for like exploiting naive women's money, getting them to breed for tax purposes?
Now you're just describing Alan Watts.
Okay.
But
what?
But with the Catholic Church.
Hold
on. Well, let me finish my question, then we'll talk about Alan Watts. Sure. But with
the lesbian mothers with red rubber boots in Santa Cruz who listen to him on Sundays. Yeah.
If the Catholic Church can change what it really represents every 50 years or so, which is the same with almost every different religion, what about the Golden Bough? Do you think the Golden Bough could be open to reinterpretation every 50 years?
Well, it was. I don't know about the 50-year thing if you're referencing the Jubilee.
It's an arbitrary number. It's like a generation and a half or 2 generations. Right,
but you realize that the Golden Bough was like re-edited later, even beyond like an abridged version to what I'm saying, where they were like, there are certain things that they were like, okay, well, this isn't technically like, because it was, if it's a good faith reading of the Golden Bough, is that the mistakes that are in it weren't necessarily intentional. It was hard to gather all that information and be as accurate as it needed to be. So there's been revision to the Golden Bough, and those versions are really worth looking at because they're probably better to look at, obviously, because they're accounting for things that over time they realize, it's not
just like
good.
There's like a companion Bible. There almost needs to be like a companion Golden Bough where you got like 3 or 4 notes on like, here's the different takes on this one thing that Fraser's saying here.
Right. In this case, they just like re-edited it, and it's great. I have a copy of it. It's I sometimes prefer to go to that copy just because, okay, now at least when that came out, then they were like, okay, we're being even more accurate, because he had to like travel to these places. Is that what happened? Like, I should know more because I fancy myself an aficionado of the Golden Bough, but from what I gather, like he got the information that's in there from like literally these places and how people recounted what they knew. So it's kind of it's hard anthropologically to go through and get all of that right. Like Margaret Mead didn't even bother. Like Margaret Mead is like a whole other thing. Like I feel like Margaret Mead should have had something else that she was in front of rather than even calling it anthropology, because it's so different.
Well,
It's
that was like Egyptology version of anthropology, no?
well, it's like when we say like reggae and then we're like, and Bob Marley. Like I feel like Bob Marley should be his own genre.
You mean like Jimmy Buffett? That's technically
that
reggae.
guy, dude, I swear, you go to like Maui and it's like, dude, this guy's like playing everywhere. I look at every little restaurant, it's saying that there's a Buffett show at this time, from this time to this time, and like it's just like
and half the people at those shows don't even know he's dead.
Yeah, it's just like there's a Buffett here and there's a Buffett there. They're just like everywhere at the same time. I don't know, there's so many places at the same time.
Well, can I qualify my Alan Watts? Like no shade on Alan Watts, but
no.
I've listened to his tapes so many times, like probably at least 20 times. I've listened to a majority of his different tapes, and I guess maybe just coincidence, but it's always an audience of women. Like every time he makes a good joke or makes a good comment, you hear like a room full of maybe 12 to 15 women swooning and like giggling and stuff. And I just like, it was just this visual that I picked up over time after listening to so many of his lectures. I felt like I was just hanging out with a bunch of rich housewives while their like husbands are off to work and they're learning about the secrets of the universe.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing. But I mean, you were just making a reference. I mean, just like there's absolutely nothing wrong with Manly Palmer Hall. The only way he was able to be so prolific and go around and do all these speeches is that he found a sugar mama. In fact, he found two sugar mamas, a mother and a daughter, that both basically bankrolled anything that he needed to go through. And I don't want to hate on that. That's like the dream. That's probably the best way to find the secrets of the universe.
I don't know. Actually, I think the best way to find the universe is to be a housewife, because in the 20th century, I mean, the vacuum cleaner, interracial servitude, and socioeconomic inequality. If you were in a position where you didn't really have to do your social obligation, you know, like taking care of kids exactly completely because or working and all that stuff, the domestic situation was sort of solved for you, and because you're wealthy and affluent and this white bitch, you're probably going to have less things to worry about, in the same way that like a 55-year-old Jewish man can start studying the Kabbalah. You know, he's already taken care of having kids. As soon as you have your kids, if they're being reared by Freemasonic, schooling, you don't really
wait, Freemasonic schooling. Where'd that come? Who's giving the kids Freemasonic schooling for free?
Okay, well, so like state. Okay,
Masonic, Rockefeller, which is not the same.
Tax-paid schooling. Well, like there's still a lot of Masonic influence.
Well, I mean, but because when you say that, when I think Masonic schooling, I'm thinking, the quadrivium. Yeah. Like, like the actual 7, like we're learning rhetoric and grammar and logic before anything else.
You just pronounced it right, didn't you?
I fancy myself.
There's like a lot of the people that like front like that they're all about the trivium. Just like not only do they pronounce it wrong, they generally don't completely know what it is. I'm saying like in terms
the trivium, and it matters the order it's in too, right? Isn't it? It's is it even grammar, logic, rhetoric.
You actually say it.
Arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy were the quadrivium, though.
Those were the 4 after you base like the first 3. And I always find that fascinating that it's actually in that order. First, you find out what words are, how to spell them, what they mean. Then with logic, you're supposed to figure out, okay, now that I've got these order of words, what is it actually saying? Is it true? And then you learn rhetoric, which is supposed to be how much of this is information and how much of it is influence, right? And that's the one thing that I'm kind of shocked that doesn't get taught in schools at all. That would basically be debate club, but you don't use rhetoric unless you're getting into sales or you're getting into politics.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Well,
and maybe drama club.
That's the thing about semantics, is that like the way that like people like this feels like the same thing that happened like with like when the CIA got all PR on like conspiracy theory and the way that was used following the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Semantics has this connotation when people say it, that it's almost just like when you say that's just semantics. I think I've gone on this rant before with you guys, but it's like it's weird because there's like books on semantics that's like the prerequisite for everything that you're pointing to. Like you can't like have a discussion with something without understanding the semantics. But now, like in conversation, people will downplay something as semantics of that's just semantics. It's like, oh, that's just a coincidence. No, coincidence may or may not show that there's a correlation between things. It may or may not. It doesn't by itself prove it, but it could be. So I it's really one of my pet peeves when people write something off as just
Kyle's like, not gonna argue semantics with you, David.
Yeah. Those are always the most fun conversations to be in person when someone's like, let's talk about the definition of is. What is. And
Bill Clinton's a lot of fun. Okay,
it's like the last conversation you ever want to be involved in, right next to simulation.
Well, I'm just like, I do get fucking annoyed when I'm like having a conversation with somebody and they have a relationship to a word that isn't my own relationship, and if I'm not allowed to like qualify that and like be like, this is what I'm talking about, like, so we have to be able to meet somewhere, like, say what you will about Charlie Kirk, but one thing about him is that he really made a point of like systematically finding the place of agreement, and in order
that's a debate tactic.
It is, but you have to qualify your terms, and it's not just debate. It's are we ever going to get somewhere if we're having an argument and your definitions are different than mine? Like, what are the semantics of what we're talking about, as a prerequisite for not even just a debate, but a goddamn conversation. You know what I mean? Yeah. Sorry. Am I wrong?
I don't know. I mean, the quadrivium is an important thing that they do teach you in like 7th grade, some of the skills from the quadrivium.
They're supposed to. Do they still? I mean, they did.
They teach you some geometry. Here's
the big
order class. You still have to learn like certain kinds of algebra and geometry in junior high and high school usually, right? I don't remember astronomy being like such a strong
but astronomy
in school, but in 3rd grade and stuff, they make you do some quadrivium.
Dude, 3 people came into my work the other day. My boss is away, and so I'm just like, I'm holding down a shop for 2 weeks, and like these 3 this is relevant, but these 3 people come in from UCSC, 3 girls, and they're telling me what they want. They're describing that, oh, could you cut us a mat board in this way? But they're like, their language, like they're like telling me, okay, it's 5.5 times 8.5. I swear that's how she said it. She's literally saying, she's talking decimals, and she didn't say by. I mean, maybe that's technically correct, I guess, but who the hell looks at that and says times? Like, because it's an X, so they're like, but I'm just like, is this where I'm sorry, but is this
that
where
sounds like semantics though?
It is, but at the same time, I'm like, it threw me off for just a second, like literally 1 second, because when she's telling me what she needs, I'm like, why are you? I'm thinking to myself, I didn't say this because I didn't want to insult her, but I'm like, why are you saying it this way? Like, who's teaching you, like, to like look at a ratio and then say the like dot too, like not point, like it's like what language is this? Like, it's just weird.
I've heard that. I've worked with a lot of autists in software dev, so I've heard all of those. It's like, it's no, you just let it happen, because I'm actually a firm believer though that as long as the communication's getting across, then the actual words being used are really like trivial.
I'm too judgmental. I'm predisposed to be judgmental with
especially against UCSC college.
Like, this is what we're turning out. So I just I have that bias. I can't help
it.
Let
me point out too that like, even if we're learning the individual components of the trivium, the quadrivium, which is the classic liberal arts, where now it's like funny. You're like, oh, I'm going to get a liberal arts degree. Like, you're not learning geometry inside liberal arts, but. Right. But I think the difference is that even if you learn some of the components now, the classic liberal arts, it was you started at 1. Like, you learn the trivium first, and then you learn the quadrivium, and they're intentionally made for each one to jump off the back of the other. So you're not even supposed to start figuring out what numbers are until you understand grammar, logic, rhetoric, and then you get into numbers. And then I think the first one after numbers is geometry. So now it's dealing with multiple numbers and the relation to each other, and then it goes to music, and music's supposed to be it's everything you've built on, numbers, the relation, but now you're adding time to the difference. So like, now you've got a relation of time in between and intervals. And then when you said like astrology or astronomy, that's not really like looking at the stars. That's more of like, now scale up all the numbers that you've learned and all the logic, multiply it by 1 billion, and like now see how the math and the music works at like a much higher scale.
Have you ever seen like how like tabla science is traditionally taught? I call it tabla science, but it's like because it's mathematical. So like if somebody's actually learning tabla for real and they're doing it the traditional way, you have to be able to verbalize every one of those things that you're doing with the tabla like vocally before you play it. Is the way it's supposed to go. This is why there was kind of like a weird reaction amongst the like this is so weird, but like the tabla purists, you know, over
We're talking
Danny
about the
Carey.
drum.
Yeah, because
Okay.
because when Danny Carey learned to the drummer for Tool learned to play the tabla and incorporated it in musically in a way that is scientific, like it is a mathematical thing to be able to take this and apply it because they're two different systems, like the Indian system versus the Western. But he did the same thing that George Harrison did with sitar, right, where they're like going to incorporate it into a rock song, which is an entirely different format, but they made it work. But like all of these like purists got so annoyed with Danny Carey because they're like, dude, you skipped the whole process. You're supposed to be able to pronounce all this stuff before you like it's supposed to take years. You can't just skip that, you know. But then he showed that he could.
Can we get a tabla purist on the show and then just open up Suno and be like, Suno, generate me a great tabla song. Use a tabla drum.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, you can imitate it then if you want it acoustic, you know. I mean, if you want like not just acoustic, but I mean, well, yeah, but like, you know, the digital sound doesn't sound the same as the analog. You know that, Thomas. You know,
Aren't there purists for everything though? Like, there's nothing that doesn't have a purist for it.
Bill is a purist in my opinion when it comes to album sync stuff. Like he's like, no, you have to like line it up. Like his preference is to. I mean, he's lived with me now for so long. He's like, okay, because I want things to be as accessible as possible. But he's like, there's a ritual to it. You gotta get on the third roar. You gotta hit that button, and this is the experience because you're taking two things and you're combining them. If somebody does that for you, you're not going to have the same relationship to it, which I think is true. Like Bill makes a very valid point, but I'm doing what I'm doing because I'm like, dude, people just don't have the time or the inclination to do something like that in general. Like it's a very rare individual. It's like, okay,
like
I'm gonna get this all lined up.
Is the one that has to synchronize it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like a purist in my own way because I want it with certain instances. Like I'm not just interested in the second. I'm like interested in what is the best split second, and can I use an editing program to just show me what that looks like, so like things land when there's when they're supposed to. I have a repeated experience where I'm like, okay, I'll take a note. Like if I just place two things together that have a strong resonance, we're all catched. I'm like, okay, that was off. Okay, which direction was it off? How many seconds was it off? And then I wait for the next one and see if it goes in the same direction. And if I go like 10, 15, 20, 30 plus times and I'm watching something and it's consistently like that, I'm like, okay, I'll make the adjustment and see. And then all of them, when they all fall in line in a row, like that's my experience. Although it's subjective, I'm like, dude, this is like literally like all these points align if I move it over ever so slightly. So I want it to be exact. Whereas if you're telling somebody, oh, you started on the third roar, for example, you're not necessarily, you're going to get close, but it's not going to be the same thing if you get an editing program and you're like, I want it right here, anyway, whatever. So I'm a purist in my own right, but not in the same way.
Film purity versus sound purity. So he's thinking of it like a DJ syncs up a record to a record,
Right.
But like an editor has to cut frame to frame.
Right. And what's the experience of a spectator of a DJ versus the DJ's personal experience? But I would take this a step further because at least like when you're a DJ, generally speaking, people are using tracks that have the exact same rhythm signature. You might just have to adjust the pitch. Like technically speaking, as a DJ, if you're using turntables, you don't ever have to stick your fingers on the nipple, so to speak, or like just like kind of like work it into place. Like you can do the whole entire thing by pitch control as long as you jump in at relatively the right moment. You could just be using that sidebar to get the effect,
Well, I would say too that like when you're doing audio mixing, there is a little bit of extra flexibility where like it's like an analog process where you're listening and you're matching, even if you've got it all lined up, if you're not letting autopilot do it, and it's acceptable because you like the amount of time it takes for a song to transition to the next song, you've got a little bit of leeway. But when you're talking about editing video, even if you're talking analog quote video, it's still a very binary snip. Like you're cutting it between these exact frames and you're putting it next to this other frame. There's no like, as it's running at 24 frames a second, you're just dynamically like, okay, jump to this other reel. Like you're at some point, you're stopping it and you're saying at this exact spot is where I want it to cut.
Right. To our friend EB Fitness 20 on here. He says always heard second roar. If it's the third roar, you know that when the witch shows up before she's a witch, right? When she's on her bike, like when you very first see her, the alarm will go off for time on the second that she shows up, and then that sets the stage for all the other instances of a similar thing. But that's like the indicator. If you start on the second roar, it's going to be right before she shows up, you know. So anyway, sorry.
Oh man, I started listening to Chinese music. I gotta show you this song. Hold on.
Oh, is it Take Me Home Country Road? Oh no, that's Japanese people doing that right now.
This is great. Oh wow, Pita. It happens.
Wait, I'm not gonna keep that going.
It starts out like a 50s sitcom.
Or it's
What? Okay, I can't hear it. You're muted. I don't know what's happening.
Now he's just vibing by
He just
himself.
wants to listen to it on his own.
you can't hear it?
No.
No,
We
you
were
hear it.
hearing it.
Oh, wait, you could though for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, you scared me.
Okay. Okay.
There's a song that goes nigga nigga nay nay. Like that's
Imagine it's like a Chinese family walking around in public, just all singing that together.
dude, so happy.
It's wholesome. Even when
It's
they say that word, it feels wholesome because of the vibe, you know.
You know, I understand the Adam Weishaupt second man, the Adolf, I call it Kinnegi, but really that's how you're supposed to pronounce it, is how those Chinese people would have pronounced it.
The decent Chinese folks, the hard workers.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about Ibogaine?
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's up a lot. There's
around.
actually some Mormons that reach out to me every once in a while. And one said, like, they were like, you know, they had a pornography addiction growing up. And they're like, that's not a drug addiction, but for them, it's a big deal. They want to, like, do Ibogaine to get rid of that.
Does it work?
I mean,
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, in most cases.
I feel like you don't need Ibogaine to get over pornography, but I don't know you, you know?
It's the whole premise of Ibogaine is like the antithesis of my entire lifestyle, I guess. Like I don't want to have less addictions. I'm trying to find more that I can just like keep at bay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's an anti-drug, right? It like cuts drugs off and it makes you want to do them less.
It rewires your brain, they say. I don't know if that's true, but
it scans your body. Like I've talked to, like, so there's a lot of people who would join like panel discussions with MAPS that had gone to Mexico to do it with like a group, you know, who had like extreme heroin addiction, and they broke their addiction. They're done with heroin. And like and one man that I talked to, he was like I still get the same craving that I've always gotten for the thing. He's like, it never went away. This guy was like a taxi driver in Chicago who ended up his arm, he had like that thing happen that's like kind of close to what is in Requiem for a Dream, where he gets this like gnarly, like, you know, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you got to start in between your toes.
He had that, and his arm was curling in, and he got to the point that he could no longer drive a cab because he couldn't hold the freaking wheel properly. Like he was just, and then so he healed. He did Ibogaine, in Mexico,
and the arm bounced back.
Yeah, he said during the session it straightened out. Like he couldn't straighten it for like it was getting progressively worse and worse. His description of it, this guy I did ayahuasca with like 7 times. This dude, so basically he was like, it got to a point where he could feel like a pressure building in the point, like, so when it got to that point in his arm where the restriction started, he could feel energy like welling up and increasing in intensity until it just like burst forward like the levee broke, and his arm just went and like straightened out, and then never went back to what it was. Like he could
not on camera though.
on camera, but I mean, this is the thing
but
is that
maybe it's
there's
not like
so
he's
many
talking about a
accounts of
broken
similar
bone.
things.
He's talking about like
No,
it's like when you get like a stroke and you can't, you basically, because opiates can electrocute your nervous system so much that you don't even send responses anymore. So here's something that's making like perhaps new routes to get the electrical impulses to that part of the body, but you can basically make paralyze parts of your muscle and your body just from destroying the nervous system.
Could the opposite happen where you go to take Ibogaine, you're totally fine, and you feel the energy going through your arm, and all of a sudden it's like, and like now you can't move your arm after you took Ibogaine?
It's a natural intelligence. It's been around for centuries. People have been using it for centuries. It's like when people are discussing like substance use and they're treating it, that sometimes people treat it like new drugs, pharmaceuticals and stuff, and they'll say, oh, this is what we know. It's like, dude, like you have substances out there. Ayahuasca is one of them too, where you're like, dude, talk about like a long-winded natural
Ayahuasca is weird because it's like it requires plants that are from like 500 or 1,000 miles away from each other. So the fact that they were able to figure out to put these two things together that do not grow with each other, it's pretty interesting that this.
They say that they got it from watching the way the animals interacted with the substances, supposedly, but I don't really know for sure. All I'm saying is that like I've been waiting for this for 20 freaking years. So when people are like reacting to like, oh, this substance is supposed to help addiction, I'm like, as far as I know, from what I've gathered from people on MAPS panels and personal friends of mine that like have had experiences with this is like the #1 substance known to humanity to help break an addiction, but also it's not uncommon when people take it, this is crazy, to die instantly. But why is that? because it's true. So somebody described to me how somebody sitting in the circle with them or whatever, when they were doing this in Mexico, they just died in front of them. And they were like, this person though was at like they had pushed their body so far with heroin addiction, like shooting up, like not like they were smoking opium or something. They had gotten themselves to that point that this is really an intense substance. So like it rocks your system. So, but at the same time, like people know the risk that they're getting into when they go to take it.
It's pretty funny when people who do like heroin say, "Whoa, Ibogaine's dangerous." I don't.
Right.
Right. Could you just be so like not have any heroin addiction, take Ibogaine, and just die? Is it like a heart thing, or
imagine you'd have a heart attack from coffee? So
yeah, I mean, you could drown in a spoonful of water. I'm just saying, like that there is a massive variable in looking at those statistics because so many of the people that take it are already at death's door, basically. So you're like, this is a last resort for a lot of people. They're like, I've tried everything. What is this? And then they're also going to Mexico, where they're just like, who knows everything that's affecting their own immune system and everything if they're not, acclimated to everything else.
And this is like not, is it euphoric or hallucinogenic at all?
It's its own thing. So like you could argue that it's like a psychedelic, but like same thing with ayahuasca. Like if you compare ayahuasca to what most people associate with psychedelics, like mushrooms or LSD, it's like it's a world apart. It's its own thing.
When you say ayahuasca, you mean like DMT? If you just had like DMT?
Yeah,
well, ayahuasca has an entire experience to it. Like you can smoke DMT and you might not like purge, vomit, go through all these other aspects of it.
Oh, that sounds horrible. Who'd want to miss all that?
Do you like to? Yeah, but like, do you think that taking synthetic THC cannabis spice in the military, is that the same as smoking pot? No, right?
Well,
like, all these
that's a false equivalence. I would say that if you had actual THC isolate mixed with all the different terpenes and everything, not like one of the fake
terpenes and everything else you'd have to add to it. Ibogaine, DMT versus ayahuasca is probably like that. Like just DMT by itself, super powerful, strong drug. If you take spice, it's powerful, strong drug. It doesn't feel the same or have the same body feeling as having.
I almost feel offended on behalf of DMT that you're comparing it to spice, which is
I get that, but like DMT is more like spice than it is not.
No way, because you can take actual cannabis and get
Have you had
THC isolate
ayahuasca
from it, right?
compared to
And then
DMT? Because
and then you
very
can get
different
mimosa
experiences.
bark and then extract DMT directly from mimosa bark, right?
Just
Right.
having DMT is a very different experience than having ayahuasca.
Very,
it's
very,
not,
very
no,
different.
yeah, of course. I wouldn't doubt that.
Okay,
and it's
there
a
you go.
more and there's a more. I mean, there's a more intense.
But I don't know if that means it's better.
There's a more reverent experience you get from ayahuasca than you get from DMT. DMT
I
can
also-
scare you and tell you, dude, you probably shouldn't have come at me so simply. Like, you should have probably been more reverent. You might get that experience after DMT, but ayahuasca won't let you enter irreverent. It just knocks you down.
I
makes
feel
you
irreverence
vomit,
is
put on
just
your
like
knees.
smelling your own farts and thinking they smell great.
there's-
Like when you
there's-
feel like you have reverence for a drug.
There's other
No, I mean,
factors
like,
here.
if you go into just
Sure.
a cat, like, have you ever been? I mean, how do you explain this? Like, you could be like hanging out with some people. They have a DMT pipe. You just passively like, oh hey, you grab it, you hit it. That could happen with DMT without any planning. You shouldn't maybe do that, but that's happening
Right,
to
yeah.
people like us. And then you compare that to ayahuasca. No one's like, oh man, I accidentally just drank a liter of ayahuasca. Like, DMT is so much more. It's too easy to just let it happen. Ayahuasca is something you have to be fully into, and it's more overwhelming because
I can tell you a bunch of examples to just that cuts through how not just how they're different, but like the significance of how they're different. So like if you're preparing for an ayahuasca ceremony, there's certain rules about your diet, and they're there for one main specific reason, which is that if you have a speck of mold, like if you're eating fruit that or nuts or something that may have had a tiny bit of mold, that's going to affect your experience and your purging and everything else. It can make you so nauseous, and it can be dangerous if you've had enough. So like people don't realize, because it usually doesn't just affect you if you eat a little bit of mold, like big deal, like it's barely gonna be a blip on your system. But if you introduce ayahuasca, the nature of the purgative is to go in and like pull all of that out and get rid of it. So it's like it's a natural cleanser. My experience, and everyone I've talked to's experience who have done ayahuasca ceremonies, is that when it's pulling those toxins out of you, you can feel that it's going deeper than just the mold. It's like, that's when you've got like psychic parasites or whatever you want to call that, like in your body, like there's shit that just needs to come out. And it's like when you're purging, you can feel like a building up an intensity of like projectile. But the thing with what I was saying about Ibogaine is that that's doing something similar, where it's scanning your body, but it's weird because it knows what to do. And like, it's just like, it feels like there's something about this substance that's like here for this purpose. That's just like, we didn't have to manipulate it to get it to do this thing. It just knows what to do. And so if you don't have to be a heroin user to take it and experience the benefits when it comes to compulsive action, addictive tendencies, like, which is really like an aversion, right? Like if you like, it can be coming from different places. You could just be doing it even though you don't have an aversion. But for a lot of people, they feel uncomfortable in different ways. And so they look to something to either distract or to numb or to do something to get away from this feeling. Ibogaine like confronts you with that discomfort in such a way that there's an objectivity that surrounds, that envelopes that whatever issue it is that you're struggling with, and allows you to approach it in an objective way. That's why I was saying, like with this guy who like healed himself of his heroin addiction, he's like, I don't cease to get the cravings. The difference is that I have a radically, profoundly different relationship to those cravings, so that they don't mean that I have to run and do this thing, because he's like, this isn't actually going to solve it. And he knows that on like a physical level now. It's not just like, oh, he has a new set of beliefs or something. So like, you know, I prefer that to people being like, oh, well, if you just follow this philosophy, you know, or a religion or something, that this will help you. Yeah, it might help you, but it's not going to be doing the same thing. That's something that's going to go in.
I agree. It's like, here, read all the stuff that like Timothy Leary ever wrote, but don't ever do acid. You know what I mean? It would be sort of analog to that.
For whatever reason, like I laughed at that originally, but now I know a lot of people that never did acid that studied LSD, and they're doing better than you'd think.
Yeah, Robert Forte lived with he lived with Albert Hoffman. He was very close with Timothy Leary in Switzerland, I believe, with Albert Hoffman. Like he lived with him for years. That guy didn't do LSD until he was like much older. And like he was like hanging out with all these people and hanging out with them while they were tripping. And he was just like, it didn't really interest me, is what he said. I mean, I
Like
don't
Gordon
know.
Watson too. That's his story.
You know, and then he takes it years later and he has this experience. It's like, oh, this is what they were talking about, but it's not going to be the same experience for him as it would have been had he taken it at the time with these people in the context, you know, what was happening. You know?
Just want to say, be careful about Ibogaine because it does cause cardiotoxicity, and it might be bad for your heart. It might actually hurt your heart in certain ways.
Look, can we I want to rewind just a little bit though, because this is like a point of contention that I think maybe I just have, and either you can convince me otherwise, maybe I can convince you, but I really now I get the full panel. So I guess that I push back a little bit on this ritual aspect of ayahuasca, that you have to get sick and purge yourself and throw up. Because to me, it's almost just like saying that, hey, you can get drunk, but you're also going to have to like chug this liter of like wheatgrass or something, and you're going to have to go and like run a mile, and then you can get drunk. Or if you want to take,
you don't got to do nothing but be white and die.
Right. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to give you some pushback, which is that tell us you've never done ayahuasca without telling us you've never done ayahuasca is what that sounds like to me.
I've done ayahuasca in Peru. When I went for Machu Picchu, we went to like a little. I bought some weed off of some guy, and then there was like a little shop, and we didn't get the whole spiel of like you have to fast and you have to do all this shit. It was just like, hey, you buy a ticket now, and then you're basically reserving a spot in 2 days. And I went with an animator from Disney. It wasn't a great experience, and the whole time I was just thinking like I'd rather be doing this with like a PlayStation in front of me and not some like bunch of people that are like crying and like barfing and throwing up and shit.
Yeah,
okay.
I stand reflected. I stand reflected, and the thing that drove me nuts every time I do ayahuasca, so people know if they know me
groups,
that I almost died on ayahuasca. I came within an hour of my life, according to the head doctor at our hospital here, Dominican. So
yeah, you had a stomach thing, right?
My intestine twisted shut below my stomach, and so I wasn't
on ayahuasca.
On ayahuasca, so I wasn't.
I feel so lucky.
I wasn't able. Yeah, I almost met the same fate as Heather O'Rourke. So, but it was because the elasticity.
Steven Spielberg almost raped you.
No, the elasticity of my intestine right below my stomach had scar tissue from ulcers that I had when I was like 10 years old. So I had like 15 stomach ulcers when I was a kid. It was really bad. And so I was diagnosed at Stanford with peptic disease and whatever. And I thought this won't affect me in the future because I'm better now, I'm healed. But the scar tissue changed the elasticity. So when it met with the purgative that 8th time that I took it, it just sealed completely shut. So I purged for 20 hours straight. I ended up spending 5 days in the emergency room while they debated cutting me open to see if it would straighten out. It was actually fentanyl that saved my life, technically, because when they gave me the ID, I hyperventilated on the hospital floor. My fingers curled back. I was completely numb from head to toe. I couldn't feel a fucking thing. And it looked like something from like The Exorcist. Like I didn't even know it was humanly possible for my fingers to curl. Like I looked down at them and I was like, what the hell? How are they doing that?
And this was all from ayahuasca.
This was it was a combination. Is that I took that time, it was like the perfect storm of when I took that ayahuasca, when it met my stomach, when it went to digest, my intestine twisted shut. So if the intestine snaps, you're septic and you're dead. That's why the doctor said that I was within an hour of my life in all likelihood, because after 20 hours of purging, I just like reached that point, and it was actually an IV of fentanyl that was able to relax me. But the thing is that I say this, like, despite having this experience, what happened to me is like 1 in, I don't know how many tens of thousands, I can't remember, but it's extremely rare. I still recommend it to like most people because I found my other experiences helpful. Even that experience was helpful in its own way. But, you know, I don't know. I don't treat it I
kind of would equate it a little bit to like Amanita muscaria and some of the stories where you would eat it direct and then you get sick and you have to throw up and you purge and everything. But then if you just drink the urine of an animal or a person that did it, then they've already purged the toxins out. And obviously that's not how you would still do it now. Now you can just go into a lab, or there's other ways that you can break it down.
There's nothing wrong with the ayahuasca that I took. I was in a group. Oh, but what I was going to say is this is one of the things that I hated was every time I would do it with a group, we're in silence for almost the entire night. I'm laying on my back, like flat, like just like going along this experience. And then in the morning they have us like get into a circle and talk about our experience.
Yeah, I hate all of that. It's just like
hippy dippy. Don't do this to me. Like, don't, like, I'm trying to integrate this experience, and what is needed for me isn't to listen to these people's other experience and for me to have to be like share my experience. I'm like, this is like, I hated that. Like, it not just hated, it was like, it felt like it was directly interfering with my own process of where what I wanted to take with me from this. And it's just like, you know, it's like when you have an insight and then thought comes in and tries to organize it and do all this shit with it. I'm like, how can I just stay with this state of insight? Why do I have to do, like, just go to this place of like, now I'm gonna
and listening to them
compartmentalize it, you know? Yeah.
That's the worst thing about Peru, man, because you'll be like coming through the jungle and I haven't heard Spanish in a month, let alone English, because you're just listening to Quechua Indians, and all of a sudden you're, you know, near Machu Picchu on that train, and right in front of you are like 2 or 3 American Valley girls, and they're just like, did you like feel it? Oh my god, it felt like so, yeah, like deep, you know.
You ever be like sitting with somebody and you're high?
American, though.
Makes you appreciate terrorism a little bit.
I would love to hear that. You're a self-loathing American.
You ever like be sitting with somebody and you're tripping or whatever, and they're like say something like, "Aren't drugs cool? Like, are you feeling this? Like, wow!" Like, it's like, dude, I don't like.
They are.
You know, my mom gave me advice when I was young, when I came home from a rave and I was on acid, and I had an interaction with my mom, and she was like, my mom was raised, she like a big chunk of her childhood was San Francisco in the middle 60s, and they just ate everything that came their way. And my mom confessed to me that she'd never had a good trip. She's like, well, I usually mixed it with heroin. You know, she's like, we would do things, or speed, I think is what she said. Actually, we would mix it at the same time. She's like, so we would shoot up LSD with speed. I'm like, okay, well, first of all, that's not what I'm doing. But anyway,
thanks,
at the time, I was like, thanks, Mom. But she's like, okay, well, this is my advice to you. She's like, trip, but don't trip on your trips. Meaning, if you're going to have an experience, have the experience, but don't get all like weird about it. Just like let things be. I was like, that is great advice, honestly. Like, I can say to this day, trip but don't trip on your trips was probably the best thing at that point in my life and development that she could have said. It's like, okay, Mom, I'll go with that. Yeah,
I can buy onto that, because also, though, it's like there's another interpretation, because originally what was like the secret mystery schools, if you went through like the Eleusinian rites, that was supposed to be the one time in your life that you drink the kykeon and you go through this like incredible, and you're never supposed to do it again. That was your one chance. And I also feel like maybe that's good for some people, but the suggestion where like, don't trip on your trip, that was the whole point, is that you spend the rest of your life tripping on the trip, right? Like, that's supposed to be like,
some people have a major misconception when it comes to like tribal use of psychedelics, like particularly mushrooms. Like, I've seen Saul Williams before be like, you know, that they have that as like an initiation ritual, and then that's that. It's not like they go about their lives doing mushrooms. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? They do mushrooms forever, dude. Like, what? Like, I don't know where he got that. It's just this kind of like idealistic projection view on
I think it's for normies, for the like the regular normal citizens in a society. Maybe if you're the freaking shaman, you're doing it constantly, but not normies. But I feel like in the 21st century, you're allowed to be a shaman and also be like a Waffle House cook.
Yeah.
True.
We got a friend who works at a burger place.
Well, there's something kind of cool about like if you're like a janitor or something by day, and then you're like,
yeah, well, honestly, it's the same mentality that I got. Like, why
and a janitor at the same time?
Why do I have to like jump through all these hoops and throw up in front of a bunch of strangers and fly to Peru or Colombia just so that someone will be like, oh, you're a real psychonaut, versus ordering some DMT off the dark web and drinking Mountain Dew and playing GTA.
It's not about like, oh wow, how cool you are that you hurt yourself. I mean, I get that a lot of people feel that way, but it's more that purging is part of the Mormon trip, because, you know, trying to get everything out of your system that is controlling you, when a big concerted effort to control your mind is your gut fauna and everything else. Trying to get that shut down so it can't control your mind, so you have a quieted mind so you could hear yourself, is hard to do. And playing PlayStation. Like I think about this a lot. Like
I'm being a little bit facetious.
I got that.
Think about how much time, like, you could sit 18 hours in meditation pose, or you can sit in front of your TV for 18 hours. Are we making, our boomer parents into little yogis by having them just watch TV 18 hours? Because they're just sitting there in front of a scrying mirror, kind of in a meditation point. Maybe there's some value to it. My argument would be that you're filling your head with things which are distracting you from your own thoughts. And that could be a good thing because your own thoughts are crowding your mind. But, the stuff that you're filling your mind with is so empty that it can just, as soon as the commercial comes, you forget what you're watching. That's probably a useful meditation.
Cards on the table. My idea of taking psychedelics would not be fun for anyone else, I don't think, but it's usually turn off all lights, all music, all exterior stimulus completely, and lay down in a room with no airflow and just raw dog whatever psychedelic you're doing for as long as it takes, because it feels like then you get a true idea of what it's doing without like, a light flashed or like a neon color showed up on the TV and all of a sudden you're getting overwhelmed by that. To be able to separate that and see like what is the drug actually doing versus what is it just reacting to from like outside stimulus. But that's not fun. Like, it's not fun to show up at a party and be like, all right, I'm gonna go in this room for 4 hours and like no one disturb me.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, when I was younger, I feel like I was more flexible, like a cat wearing upside down glasses. I could just quickly learn to see upside down and everything be fine. But as I get older, I feel like my brain's less plastic. And so switching the way I see and being on psychedelics, it would be uncomfortable. So I don't want to be on psychedelics most of the time. Someone were to offer me, oh wow, that's going to be a lot of fun again. Like as a kid, it would have been fun. Like now I'm like, eh.
You ever listen to interviews with Jim Morrison? Like, it's kind of like, so now at this point, it's like I've been like stoked on like some stuff with YouTube because it's like
I love Rush Limbaugh.
No, what it would have taken to look up, like, to find like the bootleg Pink Floyd live, recordings and stuff used to be like, oh, giant thing, like, oh, I found this, it's just all on there now. So there's all of these like rare interviews with Jim Morrison, and some of the time, like, you can kind of get the sense of like he was so high, he was in such a psychedelic state, and then he just like tapered off into alcoholism. And you can hear like how often he'll be like, okay, guys, is everybody eating? Like, you want to order some food? And then he's like ordering the food, and he's like, oh, you guys want some beer? I'm going to get some beer. It's like how often in those interviews it just so happens that you can hear him ordering a beer. Like he's just like, and they like bring up his weight at a certain point, like 1971 or whatever. And he's like, well, I do drink a lot of beer, like, and you're like, but I guess I'm just saying, like, that's the thing, is like, it's one of the problems with psychedelics is that when people really reach a high place, in many instances they tend to go into this other, like, just like the antithesis of that. And they're like
a possession thing, like you're removing all of this gut fauna, all of these demons.
I'm on board with that. I think that's probably
once you've done that, then you might become, these are chemicals, but they're really crystals, and these crystals are picking up on energy, and your blood's got crystals. So you're basically tuning your blood to specific entities, being able to,
I don't know if I'm buying into that part, but 100%, I think that's the best counter I've ever heard, is that the purging process enters the gut biome and the butt biome to make sure that like it's not interacting with like your mental thoughts. But I mean, I guess the thought that I have though is like, what's so wrong about separating those two things? Why do you always have to
be replacing that? So at a certain point, if you do it all the time, then what you're doing is, you're like a meth head, you're opening yourself up to be possessed by demons easier, because those entities are
maybe in certain cases. I don't know how true that is across the board, because of very one specific reason, which relates to your thing that you were saying, Thomas, about like just turning off all external influences, so you can just be present.
Yeah, I get it.
with
It's one more switch that you're turning off.
Because with a lot of these things, it's not just like this is one of my beefs with the psychedelic scene, is that people tend to treat it the same way they would if they were like going to watch a movie. How was that movie? Like, how was this drug that you took? As though all you are is a spectator, and there is no malleability to your relationship to the trip. Like, this takes you to a certain place. It doesn't do like the next step for you. It puts you into a place where if you want to go here with it, you can. And that's why, say what you will, but intention is important. But the thing is that there's no way to fake that. And this is the issue that I have with a lot of these groups that do like what I witness. Like, you get together in a group and you're doing this substance together. For a lot of, they're like, okay, now state your intention. It's like, dude, like, this is not like a mechanical thing. Like, you can't just like, I mean, you can do that, and it's not a bad thing necessarily to state your intention, but at the same time, it's like, whatever your intention is, whatever you say to a group isn't going to change that. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to assert it and make it real necessarily. Like, it's all about all the experiences that you've had and your reaction to those experiences that determine who you are today when you take the substance. It's not just a spectator thing. It's an interactive thing internally. So like, it's not going to just do all this stuff for you. Like, the people who are at the end of the rope with a heroin addiction, like, they're like, look, like, this is a last resort, and they have a breakthrough. Part of that breakthrough isn't just that, oh, they took this substance and it did such and such for them. It's that they're at this place and they really wanted something, and they brought that into that experience interaction, and now they're in a new reality. But like, I don't think the thing itself necessarily brings about that automatically. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I got some more bias. I guess I got a funny story. I don't think I've told before. I put it in one of my comics a long time ago, but don't give me the full.
I like it.
Here. Okay. So when I was in Peru, and after we came back from that retreat, and this is part of my bias, where I'm like, whenever someone talks about ayahuasca retreats, like I have to prevent myself from rolling my eyes all the way in the back of my head. But here's where the bias comes out: is that the guy that originally led us to the retreat that we were going to go to, when we get back, I think we went to Saxe Woman with like the big walls where all of like the interconnecting stones and stuff. And there was a city, or there was something nearby called San Pedro. And since he had just brought us to this ayahuasca retreat, I was like, well, hell, San Pedro, you know what that means, right? Can you get San Pedro? And he was like, oh yeah, like, I'm going to go in. I'm like, I'm actually a shaman in training. And I guess his uncle, he said, was one of the guys that actually did part of the ayahuasca ritual with us. So he says, in order to like give you the San Pedro, we have to do like an honoring the sun ritual. So he told me that I had to face the sun, and then I had to like pull my pants down and grab myself like nude and face
you're
the sun.
Freemason and raised Catholic, so this was nothing new.
So there's nothing new. Yeah, I was an altar boy. So I was like, my pants were down before he even mentioned it. But like, no, what happened was I had a camera strapped around me, and he was like, you got to take the camera off too. And I was like, I'm not taking the camera off. Like, I'll pull my pants down and I'll sit here and I'll grab my dick and I'll look at the sun.
But
I'm not taking my camera off. And he tried to take a grab for it and like run off, and he almost stole my camera. And then I realized, like, wait a minute, this guy's not a shaman, and he was just going to have me look like a fucking idiot holding my dick in the middle of Saxe Woman and run away with my camera. So that was part of the story and part of the reason, because now I look back on all these ayahuasca retreats as like, are they a shaman? And I've talked to what the guy that runs the largest ayahuasca retreat in Colombia, which I highly recommend because he's legit. But he also was telling me about how hard it is to vet these actual shamans, because someone can just show up and say they're a shaman, and really they just couldn't get another job.
Yeah, the sham man. That's what I've heard some.
So my ayahuasca retreats, like, nephew tried to steal my camera and like make me hold my dick and stare at the sun.
It's Peru, man.
So anytime someone brings
it sounds kind of like
that's what comes up in my head. So I'm like immediately a little bit on a bias.
Have you ever seen that Jodorowsky documentary where he's got all the people that he's like assisting in these kind of ritual processes to get them to get over their shit of whatever their particular conundrum happens to be? And there's that one guy who had like an extreme stutter, since he was a small child, and he puts him in like a cathedral, and they paint him completely gold, and he's wearing like gold underwear, and they have him gripping his balls in the center of this space, and he just like shouts things like he's like, I can speak like an adult, like he gets it, like there's stages like before that he gets it, he's like, it's a childhood thing, so he brings him to like an amusement park, it's like Disneyland, and he has him like running around and going on rides with like a little one of those little hats where it's just like a little, like he's like dressed like a little kid sailor, and he just like runs around and just has fun pretending he's a little kid. And then he takes him to this place, he's like, I'm a man, I can speak, like he does this whole deal, and he walks around like a city like covered in gold, wearing gold underwear, just like saying, I can speak, I don't have a stutter, I can, and like he does it. And like even like checking in on him like later, like the guy lost his stutter that he'd had for years. And it's just like and there may have been a substance involved with a lot of those things. They don't necessarily tell you with Jodorowsky. He's really into incorporating mushrooms into these things. So like there's times in the documentary that you can tell that somebody's like in a psychedelic state, but they don't like explicitly like tell you that that's part of it, but it obviously is. With this guy, I don't think that there was psychedelics involved. He literally
just documentary essentially.
Yeah, it's amazing actually. I recommend it. Yeah, I forget what it's called, but it's like the most recent Jodorowsky documentary.
Well, one time I was gonna do Kundalini yoga when I was 16. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning, and Maitland calls and it's like, all right, it's time. I'm like, what? Oh yeah, it's like he said it'd be early, but like 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay. So we get up to go do yoga, and at the time I'm hanging out with this kid named Zach that I call Billy, and his parents were like weather underground nuclear dismantlers who've been living in hiding and became UCSC professors. But Billy was really afraid of Kundalini yoga. He was okay with like anything. Everyone was doing any drug at his house. But when he found out I was interested in Kundalini, he started like looking it up. And he's like, wait, may cause pseudo death on the wiki page. And it freaked him out. And he's like, no one's allowed to do Kundalini yoga at this house. And he was really like, he's like, didn't mind if people were doing whatever drug, having sex in all the rooms like a high school flop house, but no Kundalini yoga. And I convinced him we should go try it. You should try Kundalini yoga, see it for yourself. You can't just judge it. Maybe it's not going to put you in this weird hypertryptamine state. So Billy was going to come with us, but whatever reason, 3 o'clock in the morning comes and we don't go to the Kundalini yoga class because Maitland wants San Pedro cactus. And in Watsonville, there's a field that if you drive by the 152, there's a sign that says Ron Paul. And this is years ago. I think it's still there, though. It just says Ron Paul. But there's a line of cactuses, and they're San Pedro cactuses. They're all like 6 to 8 to 10 feet tall, giant, just huge line of them.
I think they're all gone now. People have taken them, but yeah.
Yeah, that's the only reason I felt like it's okay to mention the story.
yeah.
But so we're going there, and there's hundreds of cactus at the time, so it's not a big deal. So we're thinking, okay, well, we'll grab like a cactus, and he's like cutting down a cactus, and I'm like supposed to cut down. We're gonna fill the back of his Mercury Cougar sedan station wagon with like 24 6-foot long cacti. But I cut one, and it falls down. Because I cut it super tall, like cutting a tree, it falls down like trigonometry right, and then the pin of it lands right on my foot, and the pin goes right through my boot into my foot. And we're talking like, I mean, this is like bam, like it's so heavy. These are not like cactus, it's just smacks it down, and the pin goes right into the bone, and I'm getting a San Pedro psychedelic injection into my foot, and I start hallucinating. And for the
that?
Yeah.
Really?
Not like so bad that I was like, oh my God, but like I could definitely feel it. And then for the next 3 days, my foot was numb.
The alkaloids are in the green. Are they in the? That's an interesting question. I don't know if you can prick yourself with it, because like if you're preparing,
I did.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to look deeper into this, because the thing is like if you're preparing San Pedro, generally you remove all those spikes. Then you ideally you only use the green, because the alkaloids are the majority are in the green. The rest of it
for 18, 20, 30 hours.
And you can't burn it at all. If you burn it at all, the whole batch is ruined.
Oh, speak of the devil, there he is. I had 5 torches growing good here in Bama, and they burned up in the fire. Way to take it to a sad place, my friend. Well, Maitland, God seems to spite Maitland a lot with fire. It seems like God really likes to burn down Maitland's life. Maitland's treehouse was just burned down. He had a house in Malibu, some land in Malibu that was in the fire. I don't know. It seems like fire follows you, bro.
So I have a question though. If that is a thing that you can actually get an effect from the needle of the cactus, then is that to say that any animal that gets poked is actually having some hallucinatory experience?
I imagine most animals trip as much as they can, right?
Right. Yeah. I love the bear.
All the fruit in nature, because it can be alcohol, can turn the sugars. So you get these drunk monkeys in Africa that eat those like fruit that they ferment.
And jaguars with the ayahuasca, and they're purging and being really, really weird. But yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the amount of people that are experiencing psychedelic awakenings are probably less than there used to be. But at the same time, there's more drugs out there. You can go pretty much anywhere. Like mushrooms are legal in a lot of the states now. You can buy cannabis almost anywhere now. So it seems interesting to me that the prevalence of drugs isn't making people more awake or conscious. Or
I wish we could go back to the 80s and 90s and tell everyone that, because that was the big. Remember when Ron Paul was like originally coming out? It's crazy because I saw an old episode of the Morton Downey Jr. show that
I
had
love
Ron
Morton
Paul
Downey
on
Jr.
it. And it's like, it's so weird because Ron Paul was like a folk hero in the late 90s, early 2000s for a lot of people, but he was pro drugs, pro prostitute, like just pro everything is legal. And Morton Downey Jr. is like in his face, calling him like a woman, calling him like horrible. Like, not that being a woman's a horrible thing, but he's using it as a pejorative.
Cigarettes a day until he died at 50 or 49.
He's getting all up in his face. Although he was an advocate for the ACA and told kids to stop smoking, I think like 3 months before he died.
Yeah, but Morton Downey Jr. So I love Morton Downey Jr. I used to work for Burt DeBrow, who made the Jerry Springer Show, and both of them are associated with JFK and the CIA. So he
grew up across the street from the Kennedys.
Yeah,
Morton Downey Jr. did.
Is that how?
Morton's related to the Kennedys and was on the campaign for JFK, and also he's related to the Kennedys.
Well, he wrote an entire book of poetry about RFK after RFK got assassinated.
Yeah,
it was called the quietest thoughts make the loudest noise or something.
Jerry Springer was also on JFK's campaign and was a politician before he was a newscaster in Chicago. And but born in England and was a Jewish German, family immigrated through England and everything. But their U.S. aid relation is interesting because, with these talk shows that emerged, you have very specific kind of, here's the, hyper liberal talk show. Here's the hyper conservative. Morton Downey Jr. kind of veined being a conservative, but maybe in the same way that Colbert did. He pretends to be
100%,
but really he's the new Democrat.
But I think he turned into it like Colbert, I think, because there's a really good interview with Colbert where they're talking to him about his Colbert Report, or Stephen Colbert, or whatever, but like they're talking about the Colbert Report. And he basically said that all of his characters, he likes to treat them like a hat. Like, you just take on a hat, take the hat back off. And that's how he treats all his characters.
Wasn't it mainly Bill O'Reilly? Wasn't that mainly who he was parodying with his original?
Yeah, but there is no Bill O'Reilly without a Morton Downey Jr. He was the prototypical Glenn Beck /
and Rush
he was
Limbaugh,
he was the first.
Morrison,
And I think Morton Downey Jr. himself was based on an older guy named Joe Pine. And Joe Pine, basically, it was like he would smoke and drink and threaten to beat up his guest. And it was the thing that stood out because you had a talk show, you were polite to your guest. You made sure that they wanted to come back. And like this vein of Morton Downey Jr. was like, that's out the window. If you're coming on the show, you might actually get physically assaulted by Morton Downey Jr. himself. And I believe it was the first talk show where they had to start putting in metal detectors because the audience that it was attracting was like all Jersey trash. Shout out Jersey. And that they were bringing in like guns, knives, and brass knuckles in every single.
Sounds like the end of Videodrome.
Yeah.
Or am I thinking that, or am I thinking Network?
Well, I just want to say that the point that I was making though is that Morton Downey Jr. at that time was supposed to be the blue collar everyman, and even when not Ross Perot, even when he had come on there to talk about legalizing drugs, it was like, you scumbag, you horrible, like, despot. Like, he was calling him every the worst name and basically was threatening to beat Ron Paul up until Ron Paul goes out. And of course, after they're outside, I think he tells him, like, great show in there. Like, that was great, But
Of
like
course.
Ron Paul has no idea that this is supposed to be an act. I'm sure he was like a little bit frazzled and irritated. And Morton Downey Jr. is just like, hell yeah, that was a great one. But like that was the mentality, that there was nobody on the side of drug legalization aside from maybe Ron Paul, and the only people that might have received him, he got sort of like public humiliation in front of them.
Well, there were definitely like Bill Maher and stuff like later. I mean,
I was just thinking that. And then
Bill Maher always had a drugged out guest. You'd have a Republican, a Democrat, a comedian, and usually like a Playboy Apollo, a winner,
The
guy he was going to get drinks with after the show.
Yeah, someone he was doing drugs with and doing.
You want to see some crazy shit like Bill has he's been paying for the old Bill Maher episodes, the oldest that he could find that are still available.
He's paying for them? They're free on YouTube.
Not all of them. So there's
every episode of Politically Incorrect is on there.
Really?
Yeah. I watched it through
real time?
Politically Incorrect.
Right. I'm talking about
the cable show, not the
real time.
Politically Incorrect was his 90s show, which was the formula I thought was the perfect show, because you have a pentagram of people, and the top of the pentagram is the balancing wizard, the magus, which is Bill Maher. Then you got the 4 points of the 4 elements, and so you've got the conservative and then the liberal.
It's just Crossfire. It's not that deep.
It's more than Crossfire, but Crossfire is fucking deep. Also, don't pretend that Charlie Rose and Crossfire and these shows aren't
absolutely.
They're alchemical formulas.
Yeah.
And Bill Maher I think had the best alchemical formula because it was the pentacle, and then now he does the same Charlie Rose style, which is the Trinity. He'll have the 3 guests, and he has himself as the quadrinity process, which is a Jesuit formula. But before he was doing the Jesuit formula, he was just doing the regular pentacle formula.
Right.
And so you have the extreme, conservative, the ideological, philosophical conservative who is scared and wants to protect their thing. It's usually like a young black guy. He'd have like an interesting young conservative, and then he'd have a beautiful woman that he wants to fuck or something. Someone that makes
every show Maher had one of those.
That makes you want to be receptive to their side, not like they do today. Back in the old days, the conservative was someone they thought you could be receptive to hearing them because it's a sophist debate. And then you've got the Democrat, and the Democrat is the obvious, this is what's right, but they're so up their own ass. And then you've got this comedian character or this rock star or whatever it is, and they bring it all back down. Chris Rock. While they're arguing over Iraq, Chris Rock yells, "Goddamn gas is expensive. Man, if we get to $5, I'm going to ride a Mexican to work." And it just brings the show back down.
Well,
and then Bill Maher can say, well, I have the balanced idea. I've taken all of your ideas and synthesized them into the perfect truth. And everyone looks at him like he's this, unbiased genius. That's the formula for the.
Who looks at Bill Maher like an unbiased genius?
That's his formula for his original show, and it was a lot more successful than Real Time. Real Time is just your average 21st century.
No, but
rhetoric.
Check it out though. But it's got that Maze on Twitter, where he'll take a clip from the past and now look at what and it'll be just over and over and over again. You're like, look, you said the exact opposite in these circumstances as what you're saying now. Can you explain why it is that you have such a radical shift? So it's when you watch, we were watching I think 2008 or whatever. It's in the time of the GM bailout, and the way that his guests are rationalizing or talking about what they're doing. It's what just happened with Spirit Airlines, right? Where you're looking at what Liz and Pete did to block the acquisition merger of JetBlue and Spirit, and then you look at okay, well, where are we at now compared to what you said then? Like, what was your base? Was this the right thing to do? But like Bill Maher, like with real time, like when you go back, and I guess politically incorrect too, I'm sure, it's not about him necessarily. It's about these guests and what they said at the time to rationalize or justify their choices. And it's just like over and over again, hindsight so 2020, you can see these examples where it's like, you guys were so in the wrong. And then speaking of Ron Paul, he had like Ron Paul on at that time saying that if you guys do this, what it's going to mean. And every like prediction that Ron Paul had for the most part is just like spot on exactly what happened. And you can watch the guests coming on afterwards to offer him a rebuttal. And they're so arrogant and they're so freaking snooty about, oh, Ron Paul, woo, cuckoo. And they're just like, they're making fun of him. And it's just like, dude, what the guy said is what happened. So there's your 3 stages of truth, just like in living color, you know. But it's like these episodes, like they're not all that stuff is like readily available. Like I want to take like some clips out of there, you know. It's like, can I like,
well, he had some problems because Bill Maher would go, you know, his ideas will change not just episode to episode, but place to place. He'll be in, you know, Utah or in Idaho, and he'll be trying to educate right wingers about Democrats, trying to convince them to vote blue. He's always doing this like manipulation of swing states thing.
And he's bragging about how much he donated to like Hillary Clinton's campaign or whatever.
Yeah,
like
I don't like, you guys like, I don't watch shit just because I agree or disagree with somebody. Like I want to see what gets said. Like I'm not like with Bill Maher, it's just like I love watching. Like even you just had Gavin Newsom, and you can see that there's things that he could call him out. You know damn well that I'm sure this happened to Tim Pool too, where it's like when he had Trump on, it's like you know that there was that very serious conversation around what the boundaries are, and you can see it in real time, like him like having to navigate that with the guy. It's just like and when because of that, it's like Gavin Newsom just like straight up lied about like a handful of things. He's like, oh yeah, there's like this report on COVID response that was just released. It's like I went to look it up this morning because he made that claim when we were watching the show. I was watching it with Bill, and then I'm gonna look into that. Like, what is he talking about? Because there was that bipartisan House subcommittee report that came out a couple of years ago on COVID response in the United States, where it basically describes how we botched the whole thing. It's like describing all of these failures, including school closures, masks, all this stuff. And it was like, this was like just like laid out. But he says, oh yeah, there's this report that was just released. I go to look it up. It says he claimed that it would be released in a month, like 10 months ago. And then he's saying it was just released, but it's nowhere. It doesn't exist for the public, at least. And there's no, like, we can't look at it. So it's like in the way that I'm just saying, like, Bill Maher, like, he probably just doesn't know. But it's like, dude, I'm just watching. I'm like, was he able to just get away with saying that? And people who just are watching that and just like Gavin Newsom, like they're not biased against him, they're not even going to notice, like in most cases, like that he just said something that's just completely untrue.
I enjoy shows for the same reason. I don't have to agree with someone to watch a show, but I stopped watching Bill Maher around maybe 2004 or 5 when 20 years out a bunch. Well, I was watching it a lot as a kid. Like my parents tried to get me to go to bed at like I was 10 years old. I'm like up at night watching Politically Incorrect. I like that show. But by the time 2005 comes around and he's actually throwing people out of his audience for questioning the 9/11 narrative.
Yeah.
I was like,
the most deaf episode.
Well, he got fired.
The right show for me because I like to see people disagree, and if they're going to get thrown out for disagreeing, then there's other shows. Alex Jones.
Well, he got fired for saying that the hijackers were brave. Yeah, because he's like and I don't disagree with him. Like, I don't know if brave is necessarily the operative. Crazy would work too, but it's like what it takes. If you're entertaining the official story that there was these hijackers and they're doing, you know, this like crazy like martyrdom, we're gonna crash into the like that's insane, dude. That's insane. At least like I don't know if I really agree
that he was truly fired. I think that Disney knew to move him off of basic cable and to put him into a socioeconomically gate-kept place like HBO, and they did that on purpose for a lot of reasons. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things that were moving to HBO at that time, post Scientology into Larry David.
I'm pissed at it. Well, you know, I don't really personalize this, but I like HBO pisses me off because like repeatedly they have these documentaries and this stuff where it's like they'll just have like, I'm going on my same rant that I just went on about like unfounded bullshit that they just like you know, and like
They did
the
Michael
Neverland
Jackson one
documentary on Michael Jackson, like the whole thing, like I just rechecked this to see if this is true because I've been saying it for a while. It's absolutely true. The guy's time frame that he gave for all these things that happened to him at Neverland Ranch,
10 years
Neverland
before the ranch
wasn't built yet. And he even specifies, he's like, it stopped at this age for me because I got too old. Well, that age that he says in his thing that stopped at was before construction was finished for Neverland Ranch. He never rode on these rides at the time frame of which
he didn't say what dimension they were in
those
when
rides
the rape
never
happened.
rode on him.
But it's like, that's HBO. Like they actually bear the responsibility. That's why during Evan Rachel Wood's thing with the legal fight with Marilyn Manson, he's just like, you know, you're first of all pointing out that she had basically she had imitated an FBI agent with her current girlfriend, who had done prison time for fraud and all this stuff. And they were giving scripts to these women. So multiple women came forward and said, you tried to get us to go along with these stories that you made up, where you wanted all the stories to line up in this certain way, and it had to be this time frame and all this stuff. And they're literally like recruiting women and saying, you will get paid, even though this is supposed to be for a nonprofit, whatever. It's like that all happened. But then when it came up in the trial with Manson, they were like, well, that's actually an HBO issue. You'd have to take that up with HBO. This isn't you versus Evan Rachel Wood, because
they're the ones who decided to air it. And
they're the ones who bear the brunt of the responsibility, and their legal team is incredible. So in both those instances, I can find all these places where it's like HBO was allowing a blatant lie that they never vetted. They never went to any trouble to validate. They just were like, go for it. And so I'm just like, dude, that's crazy.
I don't think
he got kicked off Wonder Years for that, didn't he?
After Michael Jackson, though, I mean, hit pieces on him are pretty important for their agenda. But sorry, Tom.
I was just saying that the Rachel Wood got Manson kicked off of Wonder Years after her claims. No,
that was a good one. Yeah, he was no longer able to suck his own dick either after that point. It was just he couldn't quite reach anymore. It was just, I blame her. But
poor guy.
Yeah, poor guy. But no, speaking of the Michael Jackson thing, I mean, I'm sure because of the new Michael Jackson biopic, there's just like all this stuff everywhere. Like, I haven't seen this clip for a while where he's like talking to kind of an intimate crowd. He's not at some huge event. He's at he's talking about Sony and how he was going his own way, and the truth of what that would have meant for musicians going on into the future if he had set that precedent, like what that would have meant. So it's like that was right before, as far as I can tell, that all of these accusations came from the media. And I'm like, that's indicative to me of like a corporate type culture.
Yeah, his attack on Sony led to the Sony attack on him, and they
totally
destroyed him publicly.
Yeah.
What about the books that they found with Michael Jackson? They were like similar to like the books they found with like Pee Wee Herman.
The Pee Wee Herman stuff is, who cares? Because you look at his larger collection of all of the weird stuff that he had, and it was just like, oh, so you dug through 1,000 magazines and you found one that had these, it looks like this person. It's like Tracy Lords or something. You're like, dude, like, what, like, that was a big nothing burger. And with, as far as Michael Jackson is concerned, I mean, if you're just like, you're that bad faith that you're looking at, I mean, the kid came forward. We all watched that kid at the time who was like being questioned by the police, and he's like, yeah, same what Michael did. He's now said, like, explicitly, like, dude, he's like, that was my mom, bro. Like, that was weird. Like, I was like, this guy was nothing but hospitable and kind to me, and you had to go and tell me I had to say these things that were completely untrue.
Here's a bumpkin take, right? Here's a Rube version of it, but it's like parents are letting their let's separate the parents that are like, I don't care what he's doing, I just want my kid to be rich and I want to be rich. Separate those from wherever this is going. But like most of the parents that are like, yeah, you can spend the night over at Michael's, they're probably thinking like, this guy's a eunuch. He's probably been castrated. He probably has.
I think he was probably chemically castrated. That's
he's probably asexual, so it doesn't really matter. Then if you also know, like, oh, and by the way, he's got these 2 books in his library, and they were given to him by somebody that ends up going to jail for exactly what you would think they'd go to jail for, and that's the person that like gave him those books. Like, now maybe I don't feel as good about letting my kid go over to Michael Jackson's for a sleepover.
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
mean,
but you just listen to Corey Feldman, listen to Macaulay Culkin closely, and like how they describe
without any
everything.
direct accusations from somebody that actually holds up. Yeah, I'm just talking about like
This was a court case with multiple counts of like accusations, and every single one he was found. The verdict was not guilty after deliberation of 14 jurors. Like it's just like if we don't have like, I mean, I know people don't have faith in the judicial system for good reason. But with something like this, you feel like if there was like a serious reasonable doubt after all the evidence that they were actually shown,
where
you know.
where are you at? Like in terms of how convinced you are on what you believe, 100%, 90%, 80%.
I will tell you that, like, honestly, after everything I just said, because this is how I operate, it really could be either way. And I'm not like 50-50 on that. I'm not 50-50, but I definitely like, yeah, he could but
we're talking about
I know that the guy who did,
I'm 100% obviously Michael Jackson innocent was Sony went against
100%.
him. Yeah, because like they're like all these examples you're giving, they're not like hypotheticals, they're real examples. They're just examples of other people. Like, the vocal coach for Nickelodeon or something with his paintings from John Wayne Gacy in his house that he'd have the Nickelodeon kids come over to. All the stuff you're saying is real. It's just all producers, not Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson is the victim, not the perpetrator.
Yeah, I would lean way in that direction. But because of, you guys know me, I don't want to make that assertion because something could come along and be like, well, shit, which does happen every so often when I do hold strong views. And so I just have to like, I can't just be like 100% because, but everything I've seen indicates to me that Michael Jackson was he actually cared about the kids because in all likelihood,
and there's a
he was abused
longitudinal
himself.
study. It's actually called Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah, but it's not like he lived with him 24/7.
Yeah, but Michael Jackson's bedroom is 2 stories. There's his story, and then there's the truth, right?
And they also, what they say about when is it time to go to bed at Neverland?
Yeah, they were like with Macaulay Culkin, they're like, you shared a bed with him, like that's and he's like, you don't understand what Michael Jackson's bed means. Like he's like, it's a room. Like he's like, I'm not near him. Like I'm like, he's like way over there. I'm like,
well, the joke is, it's time to go to bed at Neverland when the big hand touches the little hand.
There it is.
I'm curious on the same ratios of like celebrity conspiracy crimes and stuff. Where are you at on Kurt Cobain being taken out by Courtney Love?
I mean, okay. Regardless of Courtney Love,
allegedly.
Let's start one ththing at a time. So we know that Kurt Cobain died with more heroin in him than would have been possible.
Not true. I've looked that up because I read all the claims by Courtney Love's dad and everyone else. They say that it was like 20. I'm gonna make up some of these numbers, but it was like 20 milligrams per fluid ounce. That's actually about half of a heavy heroin addict that could have up to 20 per fluid ounce. And usually they'll say it like he had 20 found in him. And no, that's the standard measurement. And if you look at the standard measurement, he's in like the bottom 25% percentile of people that die from heroin overdose.
Well, first of all, the sheriff for that where he died specifically, I forget the name of that exact place, but the sheriff he says that the whole thing should have been the case shouldn't have been closed because he did not feel like anything was settled. He had major issues. One of them is just like apparently the length of the gun itself, that he would have had to have used his toe to pull the trigger, and then the shell is actually on the other side of the direction of where it would have gone out. So it's as if to suggest he was shot this way and then the gun was placed this way, that it would have had to have ricocheted off the wall and bounced over his body to land on the other side. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So there's a lot of things like that. It kind of reminds me of like Sandy Hook, where like you go through it just like, and you're like, I'm not going to say that what Alex Jones, the conclusions that he jumped to, but I will say there are a ton of things in the official narrative of what happened there that just don't make sense. So like with Kurt Cobain, I see a lot of those examples. Can I entertain the possibility that Courtney Love, for example, may have, out of a place of frustration or drug craziness or whatever, made a phone call to somebody that she may have later regretted? It's not out of the question. Do I think she pulled the trigger? Fuck no. I doubt that heavily.
Oh, there was a guy.
yeah.
Funny enough that you say that, there was a guy that claims that Courtney Love offered her $50,000 to take him out, and he said no originally. And he was interviewed for this, I want to say, by BBC in the late '90s. And a day after that interview, he was found dead on train tracks. So
yeah. Did you watch her on what's his name, the Smashing Pumpkins guy's podcast?
Billy Corgan.
Billy Corgan's podcast recently. It was pretty enjoyable. It's hilarious. Like when Pink Floyd comes up, and you can see the reverence and the intensity from Billy Corgan when it comes to Pink Floyd. And he's like, no, like she did. And there's a lot of time. There's tons of times throughout the whole thing that she doesn't know what the hell. I like Courtney Love. I do. I can't help it. Like I read a biography on her when I was in like junior high, and like did like a report on Courtney Love, but like, and so I get certain things. Like she's an interesting character, but she was like, what did she say? MK Ultra and QAnon are the same thing. And then like you could see that they explicitly like cut the interview and like return because she had to have something explained to her that she was just like didn't know what the hell she was talking about.
Her dad, Hank Harrison, was the manager for the Grateful Dead, for the Warlocks, and so the connection for her in the CIA is at least plausible.
Well, and also her dad was friends with
military base in Ultra. Sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
Her dad was friends with David Geffen as well, which is where Kurt ends up leaving his original label, jumping on that. And that's when David Grohl came onto the picture. Was when it jumped to Geffen.
Yeah, and here's a quick video of Kurt Cobain right before he died, talking about the island across from his Seattle house on the coast. He's talking about this island having children being essentially Epstein Island. She
was kind of a foul-mouthed person, and she hated the whole Hollywood scene, and she expressed her hatred for them publicly. And so and she also, when she was I think she was 15, she entered this essay contest when she was living here in Seattle entitled "God is Dead," and a lot of people accused her of being a communist. And then she went to New York and was a part of this acting troupe, and so it supposedly had communist ties too. And so then there's this big conspiracy amongst a judge, a very well-known, prominent judge here in Seattle, and a bunch of other people who had ties with Hollywood, and they basically just set her up and ruined her life. They had some pictures taken of her when she was arrested for drunk driving, and it was a big, huge scandal. And she eventually was sent to a mental institution and given a lobotomy and raped every day for years, and just totally abused, and ended up working at a Four Seasons restaurant alone and dying by herself.
There's a Bainbridge Island. That's where she was institutionalized, right over there. It's just all broken down, like an infirmary there.
For years, every night there were lines of custodians, friends, and people, part of the staff who would wait in line to rape her every day. She went through a lot of shit.
There's David Grohl.
And they call it the aristocrats.
He did this interview candidly, and it was like they cut that scene out, but that's like some of the tape that they had. It was like one of the last things he was recording was talking about all the problems in Seattle and kids being disappeared and the elite organized crime that's human trafficking and things like that, which is interesting. It's an interesting thing for Kurt Cobain to have been talking about that, right?
Did he just freeze?
A little bit.
Have you ever heard the Kurt Cobain death threat that he left on the voicemail to one of Courtney Friend's loves, which got interviewed by Vogue magazine? And I guess they were talking about how Courtney Love admitted that she was doing heroin while she was pregnant. Like she called all her friends, told them don't talk about it. One of her friends ends up talking to Vogue about it. She hears about it. She starts leaving death threats on her voicemail, and then even gets Kurt Cobain himself. And you can almost hear, you can't hear it clearly, but you can almost envision Courtney forcing him to make these death, because it's like the weakest death threat ever. It's almost like someone's forcing him to do it, right? But he calls multiple times, and he's like, look, we can handle this the legal way, or we can take it to the streets, essentially. I could hire someone to just make you never, be known about again.
Yeah, the thing is that it's not. There's certain aspects that do not feel dissimilar. It's like it feels like people that were like rocking the boat in specific ways with the music industry, where it's like this is billions of dollars like invested. Like that's the kicker. So I just sent a video in the private chat. I think I was referencing it earlier with Michael. I think we should watch it. I think it's pretty short, but yeah, that's my recommendation.
The devil.
Where his hair catches on fire?
Tony Mottola is a devil. I'm not supposed to say right now, but I have to let you in on a secret.
Say it.
So, please don't videotape what I'm going to say, okay?
Yeah.
Because the companies take advantage of them. They really do. And Sony being being the artist that I am at Sony, I've generated several $1 billion for Sony, several billion, and they really thought that my mind is always on music and dancing and it usually is, but they never thought that this performer myself would outthink them.
Yeah.
So we can't let them get away with what they're trying to do, because now I'm a free agent. I just owe Sony one more.
Yeah.
It's just a box set, really. And with 2 new songs, which I've written ages ago.
Can you imagine him in the Trump Tower playing Sega Genesis, Echo the Dolphin, and listening to Sovereign Citizen documentaries like on tape? Because I can.
Totally happened, yeah. And he was close with Donald Trump at this time too, which like very close. And it's just kind of crazy that like the context is like right after this happens, he was at the top of the world. He was like the fucking king of pop, right? And it was like right after this, it's just like he's completely demonized. So it's strange. And where he goes, we should keep. I don't know how long is this, but yeah.
Because every album that I record, I write like. Literally, I'm telling you the truth. I write at least 120 songs every album I do. So I can do the box set, just give them any 2 songs. So
yep.
So I'm leaving Sony a free agent, owning half of Sony. So I own half of Sony's, and I'm leaving them, and they're very angry at me because of it. But I just did good business, you know.
Tell him.
World star.
But so the way they get revenge is to try and destroy my album. But I've always said, you know, good art never dies. Thank you. I love Unbreakable. You know,
but yeah.
Turn that off, please. No, what? I don't mind. Tape it.
It's like our Heart Huckabees.
Michael is getting gangster today. Yeah.
Mariah Carey, after divorcing Tony, came to me crying. She was crying so bad I had to hold her. And she said to me that this is an evil man. And Michael, this man follows me, she said. He taps her phones. And he's very, very evil. And she doesn't trust him. And he is a horrible human being. And we have to continue our drive until he's terminated.
Oh, there you go.
We can't allow him to do this to great artists.
Does he mean 86?
Yeah, I mean,
we just can't. I just want you to know I appreciate everything you've done. You've been amazing. You're so loyal, Diana. Everybody, Waldo, all the people here. I love you all. You've been amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So it speaks volumes, doesn't it? It's to me. It's just like, I mean, I'm no conspiracy theorist, but actually I am.
You shoot at
but
the
yeah.
king, you better not miss. And Michael Jackson was the prince who shot at the king.
Right. Pretty much. Yeah. And you're like, dude, when people are rocking the boat like that, you're like, what? How does the media and everybody, are they going to respond to them? What lengths will they go to stop them in their tracks? Like it's pretty nuts. He was so loved before that. Like I never heard a bad thing about Michael Jackson.
I mean, there was the time that he held his baby out the window.
That was later.
That was afterwards.
Yeah.
He was all like twisted. He got weird, and they were medicating him like crazy too. So
Yeah,
like
the doctor got in trouble for that legally, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't hold a baby over a belly. It's really bad optics. But
no, I mean
yeah.
the doctor that was over prescribing him, I think, came on charges.
He got arrested for manslaughter. His doctor, for what he did, because he prescribed 2 medications that shouldn't have been used in combination and excessively for both of them, and it's his fault.
I wonder how much of that, though. I mean, this is all speculation, but like it's like the Elvis dynamic where all the people around him that are like, Elvis, maybe take it easy on the Quaaludes today, and he's like, pack your shit and go. Like, and now you know that you can't say no to Elvis if he wants more drugs. Like, could you tell Michael Jackson, sorry, Mike, no, we're not going to do this today?
There are so many better options, man. Like he could have been on like some sort of a research chemicals that he could have found cooler doctors.
So we
like,
don't
he
even
ended
know.
up taking the worst possible stuff that they give you.
They're sedatives.
Chemotherapy medication.
Extreme sedatives. Yeah, attached to freaking chemo. Yeah, somebody says he's still alive. That is a weird freaking video with that guy. And apparently he has a background and a history. The guy who was on Larry King, it just looks like him in prosthetics or whatever. It's like, it's really like, it's hard to not see that as Michael Jackson.
And he
that
loves
guy.
Prosthetics. Could be. It's probably Alex Jones as Michael Jackson.
No, I don't rule out that Michael never died. I don't rule it out. I'm open. But I do rule out that Rush Limbaugh is Jim Morrison. It just doesn't track for so many reasons. But, yeah.
Because it's mainly because of the choice of the music. Like the rock music that Rush Limbaugh played is just slightly outside of what he would have liked to listen to.
Yeah,
okay,
well, Alex Jones does produce beats, and he is a musician who has some other.
So what are we going to do about Alex Jones? Have you been paying attention? You know he lost his show now.
So Tim Heidecker is just on one, man. I've only seen one clip so far. He does a good impersonation, but the jokes are so bad. It's like they went to all this trouble and then just hired bad writers. I don't know what happened.
I mean, they don't care. They're just trying to destroy InfoWars. I think.
Well, he nails the impression. It's just like, come on, guys, you got to get
here. Let's listen to the impression. I haven't really listened to it yet.
I give it like a 7.5.
But I'm going to sip from the blood of the Forsaken. This is real human blood. You can find this at the InfoWars store. This is human blood curated from the Forsaken and the sinners. All right, this is pure premium blood, tested, FDA unapproved. And this is just human blood. As part of my satanic ritual, I am a servant to Satan. And thank God I was able to get him and the Lord to sit down and come to their senses and get things back to before Satan was cast into hell. So I'm part of that. I'm part of the peace movement.
Wow.
It's thick. It tastes like blood. And this is Satan giving me the powers to continue to fight. And we will continue to fight. And I cheers to you. If you have access to the blood of the Forsaken and of all the children, this is not blood. These are adult. This is adult blood, by the way.
I mean, damn, bro. I mean, it's kind of like I can almost see it as like we're making fun of Alex Jones by being the thing he's like warning people about. Yeah. But it just feels too real. It's like,
well, he's having so much fun, and that's the reason why I feel like community. I'm like, I'll allow it. Like I don't really, sorry, I got a sombrero on. I'm just, but it's cringe. It's cringe. I'll give it that. But at the same time, I can see he's just having a blast. And so, like, I tried to watch like a Bo Burnham stand-up comedy last night. It was one of the least funny things I've ever freaking seen. I'm just like, this is stand-up. Like, it's not doing anything for me. At least this got me to crack a smile. Oh my God.
Well, I mean, Alex Jones is kayfabe, right? Like he's been kayfabe since forever. He's it's funny how the Hulk Hogan documentary just came out too, because it's like a perfect analogy where Hulk Hogan was Mr. All America for the longest time, and then the shtick just got old because everyone knew, like, oh, I wonder who's going to win WrestleMania this year, you know? But then like he has to come back and turn NWO and turn into the bad guy, and now he becomes kayfabe. But like he was the master at either being on the top or being the kayfabe. And here we've got like Alex Jones, I think, is the same level of kayfabe, and to try and come up behind him and make him look ridiculous, it's not like. It would be one thing if Alex Jones was the person that he's presented on that show, so he'd like take it personal. But I mean, one of the funniest when someone did a supercut where he had like llamas on the show, and he just keeps like petting llamas, and like you can't beat that level of hilarity already, like by being mean and by saying like children's blood and stuff. Like bring on, like he's gonna have to do the exact things that Alex Jones was doing and do it with the same intensity.
They have to infiltrate Bohemian Grove again. That's what they have to do. And then he has to give like a new commentary.
That would be absolute. If Tim Heidecker broke in and he starts just singing his diarrhea song on stage,
he's gonna get invited. They'll have him like play at Bohemian Grove.
Probably because he's in that society to some degree, or he potentially could be in that. Like if you're going this route, but the thing is that if he really wanted to go there, he can't just be there for the cremation of care. He has to be undercover into the weeks. You know, he has to be like up in it. You know,
Alex Jones said that
pulls off a Danny Glover mask. Gotcha.
Alex Jones said a whole bunch of the guys thought that he was a prostitute originally, or I think maybe John Ronson said that in the book, that like they thought Alex Jones was a male prostitute because that's one of the many roles that you have when you go in there. So that's kind of what Tim Heidecker would have to go in and do. He'd have to infiltrate and he'd have to pose as like a male prostitute for all of the
I think he could totally pull that off. Why not? You know, he's a Midnight Cowboy. Why not? And literally midnight, you know, that's the thing with Bohemian Grove, you know.
Jump
with the first night, you know, it's like it's all about the midnight, man. Midsummer.
I think it's interesting that, like, I mean, like, not everybody at InfoWars are Freemasons. There's a lot of Catholics and there's a lot of Orthodox too, like Jay's, you know. But there's a lot of Freemasons, right? Like, not anymore. I guess it's all shut down. But you can think of like Chase Kaiser. Kaiser is a 32nd degree as well, and it was interesting because when I first got interested in InfoWars, like their propaganda message 20 years ago, it's like America, the answer is 1776. And start listening to it, you're like, wait a second, 1776, your obsession with America, I got it. You guys are Freemasons. Oh, that's why InfoWars is the way it is, because your goal, like everyone has a different goal, you know, everyone can agree on one thing, which is that there's trouble. But then the difference between Zeitgeist's answer to that problem and, you know, InfoWars answer, like whether we're going for full cultural Marxism, space Star Trek, or if we're going for the American Freemason thing or the Catholic Zionist thing, you know, these are all kind of the arguments. It's the InfoWars argument. And are we stepping away from the Freemasonic American dream or experiment towards the Jesuit Zionist experiment, or is that what the war is right now, when people are so upset about Israel that, you know, we're hearing Democrats and Jewish Democrats defending Palestine, and, you know,
it's a horseshoe, obviously. I mean, what people kind of has been popularized as the woke right meeting the woke left. I can see where they meet, and it seems largely to be on that topic. Now, when it comes to where we're talking about Marx now, like Marx was raised Lutheran, right? So like when he was a teenager in his 20s or something, he became an atheist before you have Das Kapital. But what's weird is like his father was a Lutheran. Like he wrote like literally like papers. Karl Marx himself wrote papers on like the Jewish problem that were like at the time what you would consider to be extremely anti-Semitic. He was like, you know, if you could call him like, is he an ethnic Jew? I mean, it's passed on from the mother, and so that's I think it's a weird kind of a difficult thing to describe. But at the same time, I'm just saying, like, it's weird the way that we treat Marxism, because he didn't come up with communism. He joined the communist movement that was almost identical to what he disseminated further with his book. So I don't know, man. It's freaking weird. Yeah. I see a
He's like
lot-
an inverse Lyndon LaRouche, if you're familiar with him, where like he started out
Yeah.
hardcore commie and then he turns like John Birch Society, right wing, conservative.
Fully. Well, he was actually like he was attacking something that he didn't grow up in, and then at the same time, nowadays people are treating it that that's just like what he was all about when he was actually like totally opposed to that. So it gets kind of weird.
Morton Downey Jr., another good example, where he was a Kennedy Democrat and then he turned into Rush Limbaugh.
Right. Tulsi Gabbard was a chair in the DNC, and then she freaked out over what she saw with Bernie Sanders, and like
Donald Trump was a Clintonian Democrat, and then
Totally.
he turned into
Yeah.
Tea Party.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Marx's dad was, they, like you said, like his grandfather was a Dutch rabbi, but his father had been a Enlightenment atheist or agnostic that converted them to Christianity.
He was a Lutheran who who viewed later on, like it's on record that Karl Marx's father was like, you've turned to Satan to his son, like you've gone into, because he was still very religious. His father continued to be a Lutheran even though his son rejected it and went to a place not just of atheism. Apparently there's some degree of like Satanism involved there, so I've heard. I don't know the complete validity of that, but I guess at least he like kind of dabbled in
this
other.
This is where like the
type
Illuminati
stuff.
ties come in, because Adam Weishaupt was rumored to do something similar, where he came from Jesuits, but he hated the Jesuits because he was forced to be under their kind of rule. So then, in order to make sure that you weren't a Jesuit deep down, you'd have to do some kind of heretical, blasphemous stuff that they integrated with their rituals just to weed out anyone that might be there as like an undercover
in a room with an 8-year-old boy for 3 days without touching.
Yeah.
Or the Jesuits kick you out. Yeah.
Well, Crowley himself was raised by the crazy Southern Baptist, or what Baptist? What were they called? I forget what the place where Crowley was raised.
Oh no, they're not Baptist. What were they again?
No, what were they called? The Brethren of. Come on, guys! I should know this. I feel.
Not the Abbey.
No. I'm not talking about Italy and later. I'm talking about
the exclusive brethren. The exclusive brethren.
Thank you. So they believe that they were the only people going to heaven. So like this small group, they were like, But the thing is like for Crowley, like his writings on the Jewish problem, were like, I actually agree with some of the things that he had to say. Like he was like looking at it and being like, the Jewish problem should be ultimately solved by the Jews because other people outside don't understand like all the dynamics, because Crowley himself was like relatively familiar with what the Talmud does and being like, this is something like, there are these issues, but you could say the same thing for other people, that they have these issues, and we don't assert to every group in the world that we have to insert ourselves and make things right for you. He was like, they had some shit to work out.
I mean, Christianity's gone through cultural revolutions. You can think about the Dark Ages to the Christian socialists in the 19th, 20th century to whatever the hell Christians are doing now, post VeggieTales Christianity. You know,
the thing with Crowley is that he had such a good sense of humor, which I don't see from Marx, which I don't see from a lot of these people. Like Crowley had a very, very, he had an intellect that was like, dude, that is another level of humor. So when you're reading his writings and that, it's just like Anyway, I don't know.
Did you know VeggieTales came out of
Minnesota?
Animators at Disney leaving because they were trying to suppress Christianity?
Not exactly. There's some dudes from
look
Minnesota.
at you pointing out nuance.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, VeggieTales existed before Disney, and they hired a bunch of Disney once VeggieTales was happening. But originally, VeggieTales was, they wanted, these Christian guys in Minnesota and in Chicago had access to a computer for rendering. They couldn't do hands, so vegetables have no hands. And then they found, Dick, D-I-C, who does producing and distribution, to distribute it, but they still needed money. And then some dude we don't know the name of, called Investor X, the silent partner of Big Idea Productions, who people think was, the CIA or something involved with the American, some Washington person put a bunch of money into VeggieTales silently and anonymously. And there was a handshake deal with Dick from Dick, the DIC, distributor guy, who died. And when he died, there was no paperwork. And that's when Disney really decided, we're going to take revenge and destroy Big Idea Production. By that point, They'd done dozens of videos, which had been direct to video, so they'd been extremely successful. They made their Jonah theatrical release, and they were such a big company. And Disney was losing animators because Pixar wasn't owned by Disney yet. So the process of Disney and Pixar merging, and then the attack on Big Idea, that was like a sequential fight because they were concerned about it. There was a point early on, I think after the third tape, when they said we should go try to find Disney distribution, and Disney was really interested. But Disney said, can you make it a moral show instead of a religious show? And they decided not to work with Disney. And after that, there were so many people who worked for Disney who are Christians. Like, Disney's not what it looks like. There's a ton of different kinds of people there from Florida, from Utah, whatever. A lot of them wanted to work on, they thought this is the greatest job for them because it's spiritually uplifting as well as doing the Disney thing. But yeah, Disney didn't originally have anything to do with the creation of the show, originally.
The knowledge on this guy when it comes to
like
shit like
VeggieTales.
Yeah.
They definitely, it was a turning point after that happened, and Disney turned them down. But at the exact same time, there was the short film. I want to say it was like Big John or something. It was about the Black Railroad worker. I don't know if you remember it. It was like maybe a 10 to 15 minute short.
The John Henry,
John Henry, I think. Yeah. And there was a scene in that particular short when they showed a church, because it's a very Christian, like Southern Baptist kind of story. And there was a specific scene when they show the church and there's a cross on the church, and Disney went to the animators and they were like, they were, one of the guys was talking about when you have to go and sit in front of the suits, and like the 12 freaking suits are like giving you all their opinions on how good your creative work is. And one of the guys sat back in his chair and he's like, this makes me uncomfortable. And he was talking about the crucifix. So they had the animators remove the crucifix from the Christian church. And at that point, I think that's when like one of the main animators ended up leaving and went to VeggieTales and basically sucked up most of their budget. And they went bankrupt within like a year and a half after that.
Wow, that explains a lot.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
And then he went back to Disney after that.
Or I think Netflix bought VeggieTales. I don't know if they still own it, but you can watch like the newer, like 10 years ago VeggieTales, where they have like blue eyes and different colors, and it's not about Jesus or actually,
it's like the new Animal Farm.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah.
But if you watch VeggieTales and you go back and you look at it, you think, wow, it was so great at the time. I better go watch it again. You realize there's not a single episode about Jesus. There's nothing in VeggieTales Christian. They say it is because there's some
like Mormonism
at the end with the freaking computer.
Keep saying it's about Jesus, but I can't find him in here.
There's no Jesus in VeggieTales. It's all about the Old Testament, which means VeggieTales is universalizing in a way that it's the ultimate antidote to the Crusades, because VeggieTales is about, Muslims have the same stories, Christians have the same stories, Jews have the same stories. The most unifying thing in spirituality is VeggieTales amongst
the most unifying thing in spirituality is the Old Testament. No one disagrees on it.
Nobody expects a vegetable inquisition.
Nobody.
Is there an Inquisition episode of VeggieTales?
I've written them, and then now they're not making episodes anymore. So I'm assuming that's the reason they never did my idea. But they should have, because Bob the tomato. They should have found out that Bob is not a vegetable. Bob's a fruit. But you know what?
Right.
That's okay, because they still love him. That's the episode.
Right, because for real, dude. Yeah, that's good. You wrote them. They didn't respond to that.
I did.
You bring up the mandolin.
I was like,
see, like it's that kind of thing. Like if I get something out there and then it is actualized, I don't need credit personally. Like I don't want credit. Like I don't care. I just want it out there. That's why sometimes like I'll just say an idea. Eggnog year round. I don't have to be the guy to make the fortune off of that. I'm putting it out there. I don't know how many viewers we're gonna have on this episode, but I'm gonna say it again. A nog for all seasons. Okay, like it will sell like crazy, and then watch what happens if you monopolize that industry of eggnog in the summertime and in the springtime. You're going to have a ton of other people trying. It'll be like what happened with kombucha. They're all going to jump on board, but you got to be.
Lindsay Lohan's going to blame eggnog.
yeah.
I got $1 million ideas all time. Flavored air. I think I saw an advertisement for flavored air somewhat recently, but just imagine you could get
like your
like baseballs, like where you're just like.
cool, like a little container of Cool Ranch that you just inhale, and now you just have Cool Ranch flavoring.
There's
with
no air bubble. I'm
Literally,
saying Spaceball.
That's literally what a fart is. I don't think it's good. I mean, you can probably sell it, but I don't think you should. But there are all kinds of things that Paranoid American does sell that are worth buying, and I would recommend you check the products out at paranoidamerican.com.
Please do. It's the only thing that really keeps me going anymore. I don't have an actual job or anything,
It
so
doesn't have the sun. So.
this is and honestly, you're not going to find any other conspiracy and occult comics that have as much attention and care put into them as I do. Even if people are doing it, they're doing it because it's like a fun little pastime for them, or it's like they saw or read one book and it was a novelty. This is my life, so I take this very seriously, but I also want you to laugh with it. So and by the way, I got a really important interview dropping tomorrow since I got the floor right now. The first long format interview with Tanya Yakey, the widow of Terrence Yakey, who was the first responder at Oklahoma City. We have a 3-hour interview. She drops all sorts of bombs that she hasn't mentioned anywhere else before. And our last 3 interviews, I think, were CNN, which she bailed out halfway through, People Magazine, and a Time Magazine. So I think I've got the longest sit-down interview with her in quite a while, and she blows my mind on this thing. It's probably one of the most important interviews I've ever done. So go and check that out tomorrow at 3:30 on Paranoid American YouTube.
Nice.
Dang it. I had the page up, but you couldn't see it while you were talking. It just full screened you. My bad. Let me try that again. Paranoid American's YouTube's right here. You can click on Remind Me, and then when it starts to play, it'll just pull you right into it. So go to paranoidamerican.com.
That Bad Mason's gonna come out a week after. That one's fire too. We literally go over every single claim against Masons, from the boy brides to the butt stuff to like murdering people and William Morgan's story, P2
and
Lodge.
even some of the untrue stuff after that.
We cover every single one that I've ever seen come up in the last 10 or 20 years online. We go, me and another 32nd degree Masons. So you know that we have to tell the truth.
Nice.
You should call it like M64 for Freemasonic 64 for 3232. All right. MK Ultra Sound 723. That's how you find David Plate's amazing sync work. You can click on the link right here to go to thesyncbook.com, where you can find all of his sync films where music has been synced with movies in the most incredible spiritual and artistic ways. And
VeggieTales?
Highlights. Say it again?
I haven't touched VeggieTales. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think that's what syncs with Nirvana is VeggieTales.
Okay,
so
there's people in the comments who are asking about you. So you mentioned Invincible and the Star. Is it Phantom Menace? Is it the prequels? What do you?
Yeah. If you listen to Invincible, the 2001 I think Michael Jackson album, which is the white one, and you sync it 3 times with episode 1. Starting right around at the end of the movie, it plays right back to the explosion at the very first 20 seconds of the movie, right as it's opening up. And it goes boom. It goes,
which is crazy because that was a false flag, right? That's like the whole thing in the movie was that the Phantom Menace is a false flag. So people were asking about that. I don't have that on my site. Do you have that online somewhere, or are you just telling
Star
people?
Wars one?
Yeah.
No, I haven't. Yeah. I should probably sync it. I just do it sometimes for fun.
So my Michael Jackson sync that I have on the website and on Twitter is Home Alone with Dangerous. And so that's there. My Star Wars prequels one is I have all 3 prequels playing at the same time with, there's like it's hard to explain. You'd have to see it. There's something that feels unexplainable. Like if you're actually trying to follow through and work out the math, the way that it's arranged with Ghost Rider and the Ninth Gate, all 3 Star Wars prequels, and Eyes Wide Shut mirrored against itself at a certain point. Like it did a weird thing. Like it's like I get halfway through the movie, that's the exact halfway point, and then with 2 screens mirroring each other, and then one screen goes backwards through the movie while the other one continues to go forward, so they meet at the beginning and the end. So and that's that's with the White Album and Charlie Manson's album Lie. So that's what follows the White Album. So that sync is called White Lie, I think, or something like that on my website. I think it's on Twitter too. I forget what it's called on Twitter. If you type in those keywords, like even like ghostwriter or something, it would come up. Yeah, there it is. So there's that. This is insane. But the the Michael Jackson Dangerous with Home Alone is pretty goddamn funny. But yeah, so it's yeah, I did it's elaborate. It starts out with Manson's music and then it goes and then it comes back to Manson's music later. But yeah, it's kind of nuts.
Excellent. Well, yeah, so make sure you go to MK Ultrasound 723, follow David, and while I have your attention, since we're here, I'll just am I frozen? No, we're good. Look up sex. So github.com/exert/sex is the sex microkernel, and look how much work I've done on this project. There's a lot, and AI. I'm definitely vibe coding a chunk of this. Don't get me wrong. A big amount of this is AI, but like, hey, if you wanted to get all of the PKU keys for a hardware system and write low level programming, you'd want to use AI too. Just saying, you should look up this project. Cool. Follow it. Go to GitHub. Sex. All right. Gonna be big. See you guys next week.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.